In this video, we are going to break down Palm of My Hand, the Odd Mob remix. Now, the whole point of doing breakdowns, why would you want to break down tracks? Because number one, what we're going to do is look under the hood of the track. Producers want to know, what am I missing? What's really going on in these tracks that I'm not doing? And that's what we're going to look at. And what we're going to do is we're going to help you learn how to listen to music in your favorite tracks like the Odd Mob remix here in a completely new way. And that's going to allow you to see the patterns in every track that you listen to. It's going to help you develop that pattern recognition and that analytical skill. So every track you listen to, you're able to see what's going on. And then, of course, what you could do is then steal the sauce, because then you can start using these ideas in your own tracks, in your own way, right away. All right. Now, after watching this breakdown and the other ones, I highly recommend that you do this on your own. Now, of course, it could take a lot of time and ear training to kind of get to a level where you would break it down. But hopefully this video will show you how to do it and speed up that whole process so you can start doing it on your own as well and take the lessons away from this Odd Mob remix. Now, one of the cool things, or a couple of the cool things that we're going to go over here in the Odd Mob remix specifically, is all about the hooks. Like, the whole track really has a very constant groove. And so what keeps things interesting is how the hooks develop over time. And so some of the interesting things that go on here is the hook pattern. This is the high-level hook pattern. It's extremely sophisticated in his track, really sophisticated call response within the vocal itself and between the vocal and the sound design. And I highly recommend that producers spend more time here getting that hook pattern right than they will worrying about breaking out of the loop. Stay in the loop and get that hook pattern down, because it's really everything, and Odd Mob crushes it here. Another really cool thing that he does is this idea of hook texture. Don't want to dive too deep in right now because I just want to let the video do it, but this is the definition of making repetition. If you have something repetitive, this is how you keep it cool and interesting and sounding professional, really. So we'll dive into hook texture as well. And final thing is a different HD2. So HD2 for me is the last drop, and Odd Mob is really doing something different between the first drop and the second drop. And despite what a lot of producers think, that's very rare, and it's actually difficult to pull off, but Odd Mob totally nails it, and we're going to break that all down. So let's dive in. The way we're going to break this down, just like every time, is we're just going to look at the storytelling over time. And the way that you tell a story in like tech house is you've got two main characters. You've got the groove character, which for me is going to be drums and bass. That's what we'll define in this video as groove, drums and bass. And then you've also got hooks, things like vocals and sound design. And so, of course, this track has awesome hooks. But the whole point of arrangement is just telling the story of those two characters over time, the hooks and the groove, and just seeing how they develop. And so that's the whole point of this, is like, once you have kind of your core elements, you've got your drums, you've got your bass, you've got maybe some sound design elements, you've got your vocals. How do you tell the story? And one of the ways that you can help yourself in figuring it out is by looking at reference tracks, breaking them down exactly like what we're going to do right now. And I love this track. Definitely one of my favorite tracks within the last year. Let's go ahead and start breaking it down. Here we go. So starting off right away with pretty much the full groove, which is just going to be drums and bass. And so I'm going to break that into two. So we're going to do beat, which is just going to be like kick, clap, hat. And then we're going to do bass. Cool things about the bass, a little bit wide. You can hear that little bit of width on kind of the mid bass, you could say. But where is 8 bars? There we go. Cool. So we got the beat, again, just going to be the drums, kick, clap, hat. And then we've got the bass, which is just that offbeat kind of bass. And so awesome. And then going on. One thing that's interesting about this groove, you can even see it in the waveform, is it's like just how hard that kick hits. Like, those transients right there are really cool. Like, man, is that kick just slammed, at least on the transient. But the funny thing is, on the sub, it's not that big. And that is cool because a lot of times producers are like, dude, it's such a fat track, and like, yeah, it is because it's mostly just that low end weight, a little bit of that mid bass on the sides, but it's really the like the punch of the kick that just makes it feel that way, because it's not like, if we look at this, in terms of loudness of just groove, like that's not that loud. -8. Like Chris Lake's track, Summertime Blues, gets into the -4s. Now, granted, that's because I'm looking at the loudest part of the track, but even his groove would get into the -6s, -5s in terms of loudness. Yeah, the interesting takeaway from even looking at this is just keeping it really deep. Look at this. You don't even have a second harmonic here in the bass, really. It's just that sub, and then you start getting harmonics above 100 hertz. It's just so deep, right? It's so low, just down there at D sharp, just that sub, huge space, and then you're getting some harmonics up here on that bass. And then once again, not crazy in terms of the loudness of the low end. Like, look at that kick. That's not an especially loud kick. Bass is nice, but if we just look at the low end, for example, like usually you can have like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause this really quick and just bring in La Danza. All right. So for example, here is La Danza by John Summit back in the day. And look at the difference in John Summit's kick in this case. All right. Watch this. So I'm just looking at the frequencies below 100. Okay. That's enormous, right? Compared to Odd Mobs. Odd Mobs is deeper, so it has that feeling of weight. But in terms of crazy loud low end, just not the case. There's no... And it's not that one is better than the other. It's just when you hear something, like just recognizing what it is. Like, yes, there is that fatness, there's that weight, but it comes a lot from the strength of these crazy kick transients, as you can see. Another good comparison, though, is looking at the transients, for example, of John's kick here, just flat, right? Which is fine. But look at this. Like, that's just nuts in terms of how they punch over the sub. And so it's a combination of that super deep kind of sub and then just slamming the transients, which is really cool. All right. So just wanted to dive into that and keep it going because this is arrangement, not mixing. Let's go. Oh, let's turn off the low pass here. You get other thing to point out on the drums. You could hear every fourth clap. There's that kind of reverse into it. And one interesting thing to point out about that is the clap is down the middle in this track, but the reverse clap is wide. Just kind of cool. Just a nice little stereo separation between the two. I wouldn't even call it stereo, just stereo separation. I'd call it just stereo interest between the two. Whether that was conscious or not, who knows? Probably. So I just think it's cool. Oh, hold up. We're getting something new. All right. So we're getting a reverse vocal right here. Just have that come up. Awesome. And then I'm also just going to create an edit map. Yeah, I probably won't keep up with it, but I'm going to try. And then we'll just do like a high level arrangement map as well here. So a little bit of an edit back here. Edit is just where you kind of remove the low end in some way, high pass, removing kick, removing bass, whichever, it doesn't really matter. But what edits usually do is they'll prepare you for some kind of change. Here, this is just, which is at the end of 8 bars. And that's usually where they happen, end of 8 bars. Map is, let's just get the intro here. So intro, and yes, I'm so happy that Ableton fixed that. So cool. I'm going to call this actually intro / bass drop. because the drop comes in right away, you know. All right, so beat and bass continue. Obviously, we're just getting that huge vocal. So it's going to be Vox lead and or main. Let's just put this right here. Color. And then moving on, let's see what we got. Really cool way that he processed it, you know, like just listening to it. Yeah, just really cool. Just going to call these chords for now. I'm going to try to keep this really simple. We're going to get to some complex stuff coming up because he does some crazy sound design thing. But one of the things I want to do is move away from the complexity of the sound design into the simplicity of the structure. And there's going to be something really, I think, an important point for a lot of producers watching this from this track. But let's keep going. So I'm going to actually kind of label these vocal sections slightly different. So we've got the verse right here. Let's just call it a verse, just taken from the pop world. And then here we've got the pre-chorus. And then we've got what we can call is the chorus, because this is where the palm of my hand line drops, and we'll just color this a dark blue, I guess. Cool. And so let's get these guys over. But yeah, very simple. Another interesting thing that Obmob did here is you could see the gain reduction directly on the master. It seems like it's the very last thing in the chain because you're getting this absolutely perfectly straight line right there, which tells you that the gain reduction happened after limiting, because this is a limited signal that's just getting brought down over time. So it's just the output is literally getting brought down over time. This is the most, I guess, direct or obvious example of that happening. Sometimes what you could do is you could put the gain reduction at the beginning of a mastering chain so you don't get the linear down, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to have the same effect because it's going to make this just feel more explosive. And that's what the whole point of that is, but you could just see the technique in action literally right there, just turning down the volume, post-limiting, and really cool. It's a cool, common, useful trick because it just really does smash when you get over to here. All right, so. All right, you can hear that there's this kind of like bam, 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 bam kind of sound. So I'm just gonna call that a little pluck. Not really like what you would think of as a traditional pluck, but I'm just gonna call it one. Bum, bum. And that's just playing on the quarter notes. So bum, bum, bum. And we can kind of see what that is actually. So D sharp right there. And I just wanted to verify because I was like, you know what? It's playing a D sharp probably anyway. So let's just throw it on to D sharp there. And there we go. All right. So we got a cool little wide impact there. Cool. And let's just color that. Okay, got your risers right there. Let's see. Okay, I want to check the low end here. Cool. You can see the bass going away first. Watch. So here's the sub. Now that's the kick and the sub bouncing. Otherwise, you would see a perfect consistency with the kick. But since you see this thing just kind of constantly hovering there, that's just the kick and the bass going. Cool. And so this is like slowly, I'm going to put it from like right here on both of them. So slowly high passing. This is, that's not coming from the gain reduction or the gain automation. This is just actual high passing. And then here. Okay, so this is HP up, and same with this guy. More chorus right here. Okay, that pluck is still going, chords are still going. Okay, so here we're getting a definitive. We'll do like effects, white noise riser. And so right there, like that. Cool, so that all cuts right there. And let's go like that. So, okay, so chorus vocal right there. So one of the things he's doing right here is he's increasing the delay. So, more delay. Is that delay for tension? Just a little bit, very subtle. And then we're going to get some like Vox payoff with layer, you know, just some kind of layer to make it a little bit different. Oh, that's cool. So there's some kind of man, you could use a lot of things for this. You can use a vocoder. You can even use Ableton's new resonator where you feed MIDI into it. But you can hear one of the layers that's on that vocal is chords. And the vocals are singing the chords, not because the actual vocal is singing the chords, but because there's some kind of like MIDI on there. I'll just show you real quick. So if you go get the resonator, or just, man, there's so many ways to do this. I'm just going to show you one. And if you get this guy and you just do a MIDI input from wherever, let's just say it's from the pluck, you know, or actually technically, let's say it's from the chords. And then this guy is just going to lock or just only allow the frequencies that correspond to what's coming in playing through the vocals. And so that's pretty cool. So I'm going to just set this up really quick. And so I just got a piece of this vocal down here, and then I decided to actually work it out on a screen because it shouldn't be too difficult at all. So I'm going to get the spectral resonator. We're going to plop it right here onto the vocal. Now, I might as well just for now go to D sharp. So where's D sharp? There it is. We can go to 2 voices, maybe pop that guy back to 50. Okay, but if I wanted to, then I wonder if I could just do MIDI, for example. So if I get like a D sharp minor chord, which would be D sharp, F sharp, A. So So if I go to here, and then let me just see. So if I play D sharp minor, and I'm just seeing, I just wonder which notes, it doesn't matter which notes I kind of change here. But what if we just did something weird like this? So we're just going down and then we can bring it back up. But the point is, if I come over here and I go MIDI from, and we're going to go to 3 drum rack here. So if I play this now, do I need? And then let's go 100% here. And then let me just see MIDI. Here we go. I was messing it up. There you go. See? So just MIDI and then poly, because we're getting a couple things from here. But, all right. So if we pull that back. So that's definitely not the greatest sound in the world, but you can see how if you finesse with it or mess with it a little bit, it could sound okay. There you go, something like that. And that's it. So you can get some kind of cool things like that. So if I just really quick, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to get rid of the spectral resonator. So we just have the dry signal here. And on this one, I'm just going to have 100% on the spectral. Now, the reason why I'd want to do this is now I have independent mixing control over the two. So I can control the dry signal by itself. But then I also have this guy. Right? And so now I can control those two separately and I can mix them separately. Now, of course, I could come on here and create like a chain, right? I could go like this and now we can have a dry and then this would be res, let's call it. And so you could do something like that too, so that you can have it on one channel. But, you know, it's sometimes just cleaner to have it on one channel. So I'm just going to take this guy out. There we go. And then together, there you go. But that's one thing you could do that's kind of along the lines of what he's doing. Oh, you know what? Nah. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's go. All right, and then we get to the first big drop. So we'll just do like chorus drop. But this is kind of like the first main drop. And then over here, we've got hook drop, but we're going to HT1A. So hook drop 1A is what I'll call this. So I'll consider this HT1. And so let's go ahead and play. All right, so this is where we're going to have some fun with the sound design. So, well, or at least looking at what's going on with the arrangement of the sound design. So we're just going to call these like SD1, and that's going to be like, I'll just call this a stab for now. So stab. So here we go. Let's map this out because it's going to be really good. And then we have the lead vocal. So then we have hands right here. So it kind of goes right there. And then... So that's now playing on the offbeat. So let's get this one, which can be SD2. I'm going to call this res. Because super deep sound right there. Very low octave. And you just got like a little resonance kind of running down through that. So could even be a bandpass on that guy, but... And then here we have hands again, so. And then there's going to be another one. We'll call this one SD3 laser. Cool. So SD1, stab, cool. All right. Cool. And then we have hands again. So. And then we have the wub. So let's get over here and we'll do SD4 wub. Okay. And then we got palm of my hands. So we got hands. Hands. And then we got palm of my hands. Maybe we'll color this a different color here. All right. Okay. So this is going to be SD5. I'm going to call this like FM stab. Wow, okay. We're going to call this SD5 FM stab choke. Because there's a little sound that comes in here that plays. You can hear that? And that guy just chokes the sound right there. So that stops on the offbeat there. And this guy plays through here, just like that. You hear that. And then we got hands. This will repeat. This one is the same. Okay, we're getting a little bit of a reverse here. So we'll do like effects rev. That's all that I'll put for that, but it kind of just swoops in there. So maybe I'll put it like that. So same right here. Shh. And it does it here as well. So maybe I'll put this kind of up at the top. Probably right there. Let's see. And it does it here, but it doesn't do it here. Oh yeah, it does. I missed it. There's like a little rattle. Maybe I'll move this down here. And so then we have like a rattle. I'm going to call this like high rev. So cool. Brr. You can hear that. There's like a little rattle. Brr. Okay. So this one is definitely different. This one we'll do SD6. I'm going to call this just the wide one because it's nice and wide. This one is kind of the counterpart over here. But here, so same thing, just like that. And then we get that like, I don't know what to call it. It sounds like a car like screeching, but I'm just going to do like clap texture. And so let's go here. And then that gets cut off with hands. And then I think we're almost done with the sound design, maybe. And then we've got the wub. Where's the wub? This guy. Okay, just a little bit more open. Okay, maybe I'll just color that slightly different like that. Okay. Okay, so we definitely have like a clap bomb. So we'll do clap bomb, which is just going to be a clap that's into a bunch of reverb. The thing about this clap bomb is that there's a lot of highs in it, which is nice. So maybe it starts off that clap. Sounds like there's like a little bit of a reverse into it. So rev, question mark. Okay, let's see. Okay. So here we have an edit right here. So right under that, at the end of the 8 bars. So here and here are going to be HP for high pass. And I'll bring that down. Okay, cool. And then we've got that percussion lift, but let's start here for now. The thing is, like, everybody watching this, most everybody, is going to be wanting to remake all the sounds there. And that's cool. But you got to realize he's made them. And, but at the same time, what you want to do is if you have a vocal and you want to do a sound design section like this, then the key is like just zoom out one level away from the sound, right? Everyone else says zoom into the sound, and that's cool, right? If you're analyzing the sound design, do it. But if you're analyzing arrangement and you want to sequence the sounds in your track, then step back, zoom out. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm going one level above the sound, right? And I'm not looking at what the sound is. I'm just marking where it happens. And then if you do that, you'll start to recognize other things. So instead of getting tunnel visioned into sound design, which again is totally cool, but you're going to miss, if when you zoom in, sometimes you miss the big picture of zooming out. That's literally the whole point of doing arrangement breakdowns, is that skill of zooming out, but then seeing the higher level layout. And what you see here, and you learn a lot of different things that way. So for example, we can kind of layer these into almost 3 distinct sections. All right, so these are going to be the SD, I'm going to call them just like spots, because they're just little spots of sound design. And then we have the vocal, and then we have like let's call these like the SD secondary. And I'm going to actually change the name to SD primary, because these are the main sounds. But then these guys down here, I would say, are kind of like, I would categorize them as like secondary to the primary sounds. They're kind of interacting with these primary sounds. But if we just look at the primary sound design, you can see the pattern. But even more importantly, you can see the pattern as it relates to the vocal. All right. And if you look at just the vocal, you'll see the pattern of the vocal. What's the pattern of the vocal? Let's start there. Pattern of the vocal is we're doing the tidal line. We're teasing the tidal line, palm of my hands, but just hands, 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 not giving them the full tidal line yet. And then here at the 4, giving them the full line. So what this is just call, 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 response. Call, 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 response, right? And then in between each of these is where you're getting these different sound design sounds. And it's just a really cool pattern, and that you can totally just, if you're messing with the vocal, that could kind of be broken down like this, where it's like tease, 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 or call, 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 and then pay off the full line at the 4, and then just subtly switch up the sound design, keeping the pattern the same. then this is just something that you can play with. But it would be hard to see the interaction if you're too zoomed in, right? That's why it's nice to zoom out so you can kind of see how the elements are actually playing together, how the vocal is kind of doing its own pattern, but then also still interacting here with the sound design. And then if we look in the secondary sounds are pretty much just, well, this guy right here is just like a reverse into the bars, just really creating a nice emphasis on the kind of the downbeats here. But and then another little rattle right there, right? And then that's a cool one. That one's I didn't actually hear that the 1,000 times I listened to the song. I never even really picked up on this until just now, where that thing just chokes that sound. And then this guy right here. But you can see how all of this just interacts. Like, check this out. So this little clap texture right here chokes this sound. It stops this sound. And then when the vocal comes in, the vocal basically chokes this sound, right? So you can see the intentional placement, the triggers, the chokes. Very cool. All right. And then let's see. So I'm just going to duplicate this over. It'll probably be a little bit different, but what I'm going to do is create another channel down here. This is going to be that kind of like percussion lift. Definitely like a sound. Maybe I'll do like SD percussion lift. So let's see here. So I'm going to map that rhythm out. Let's see. So that's just 8 notes, right? We'll do it on D sharp. Why not? So this guy right here duplicates. And that probably will repeat. Cool. All right. So that repeats right there. And then let's now check in with all the sound design. What changes? How does it develop? Again, arrangement breakdowns are all about what hooks are there, what vocal and sound design hooks are there, and how do they develop? All right. We've already seen kind of like a development across these 4 bars. All right. So, for example, this sound is different here slightly. So not. That's a significantly different sound. This one, pretty similar, right? Same with this guy and this guy right here. But, for example, this sound and that sound, yeah. And then the right here. And then this one. All right, so let's check this. So that one's slightly different. So I'm just going to create a new one down here. So actually that's going to be up here. So this will be SD 7 and it will be, I'm going to call it weaker stab because it's just a little bit weaker than the original. It's also a little bit of a reverse into this. So I'm just going to put rev on there. And cool. So let's see what else. Okay, so see that? All right. Okay, so similar. Okay, we're also getting a drum lift. And when you're zoomed into that sound design, like, man, you can really lose track of everything else. But we've got a ride lift here. And let's go like that and pop this guy on top. Wow, I don't think there's actually a ride lift there. I think I accidentally just listened to one of these swooshes. There might be the most subtle tops lift. That's just kind of pumping in the background, almost like a ride. So I'm just going to leave that because I think there's something there, but very minor. So let's still go back to the major stuff. So this guy's the same. So... Okay, so all of this stuff is still checking out. So this one, so that's the similar to this one. So these are pretty much the same right here. So, but you're still getting that choke right there. So this guy. So that's the wide one. Getting the car screech thing. All right. And so it seems like most of this carried over except for the beginning ones here. We got to check the vocal here and make sure. Okay, there we go. But now one thing to point out is that the vocal is delaying over time. And so let's just kind of like, let's see here. All right, so I'm just going to do like a Vox effects. And then right here, vocal is Vox delay for tension. There we go. And cool. So awesome. All right, cool. So let's get all these guys into view here. And let's open this guy back up. Cool. And then this guy as well. Cool. Let's see. All right, cool. And so that is the sound design, and that's the layout. That's the structure. You could see just the interaction with the vocals, very simple. It's easy to hear this when you're listening back and forth, but yeah, it's just nice to have it laid out. And so the whole point is, like, if you're just messing around, then you're looking for samples on Splice, going through presets. If you want to design something from scratch, go for it. But like, you could just have things interact in this way. All right, moving on into the B section. So one thing we could do is up on top, HT1A is going to be sound design CR with Vox, which is going to be call response with vocals. So the sound design, call response with vocals. B section here is going to be, HT1B is going to be the main vocal. Main Vox. Cool. And just to create some contrast between the A section and B section, we'll just color them black and white like that. And okay, there we go. So one thing is, I'm just going to move that over. I'm not sure if there's a lift right there, but there's definitely like a hat lift right here. Just a super bright. Cool. And then that is going to be the verse. So we'll bring this over here. We're probably going to just bring this all over like that. You could hear this almost kind of drone in the background there. And it's just playing a D sharp. So there we go. Cool. All right, and then there's a couple little like kind of clap fills going on through here, so I guess we can map those too. So clap fills. So kind of like right here. Is there one back over here? Yeah, right around there. Okay, so the reason why, of course, if we're going back, if we're going to put one right here, which is around the 6 bar mark, there's probably going to be one back here around the 2, just so you have that kind of symmetry. Cool, and then we've got a much bigger one right here. So like that. Is there anything right here though? Nah, nothing at the 4. All right, so then going over here. Cool, and then we're bringing back those chords that we had from before. And there's a string in there now that you can hear. String. So let's get that guy in. Either D sharp or A sharp. Let's see. So that is an A sharp, because a lot of times when you're doing strings, you're just going to be playing the 5th. And that is what A sharp is. It is the 5th. Why is that not going across? Okay, there we go. Okay. So no little fills. So where's that little rattle thing? This guy's kind of over here. It might be a different little rattle, but... So that little guy is playing over here as well. Kind of, like, I'm just going to put it there anyway. But it's just some kind of little rattle sound. All right, and then if we look here, you can see once again that we get this kind of downward movement with the gain. I'm curious to know how far down that goes. So if we look over here, we can kind of see what the peak value is. Maybe 3 dB. So you can see I'm looking at the channel dB right there. So maybe 3 dB, all the way down to 3 dB there. Cool. All right. Another way I could check that, of course, is just to... Yeah, going down to a 3 dB right there. All right, so now we're getting a synth. Let's get this guy, a synth. We'll call it 1. Oh, man. Coming up on some more crazy sound design and drop, too. The song's nuts. I love it. Okay, so that guy is going. So let's map that out real quick. So we've got, let's go say on 16ths. So that's going to be starting on A sharp. So. And then we're going up. So, and then, we're going up to C sharp, which is the 7th, and something like that. I think maybe he's here. Let's see. Okay, and then let's just loop around. There we go. Okay, so we've got the string. Yep, string is still going. We got the chord still going. Let's see. Chorus, drums, bass, hat. Yep, that main kind of hat still going. Okay, you can hear that the little synth right here. Maybe we'll call this one pluck. And then I'm gonna call this like vocal chop. Or maybe we'll just call this chop. That's probably better. Back here, this doop, doop, doop. It kind of sounds like a vocal. So I'll just call it box chop. There we go. Move it down here. And then this is more of a pluck. But this is starting to delay for tension. And I'll just put pong on there because it is a ping pong delay. Okay, you heard that edit right there. And then okay, we have the same kind of impact here. Wait, where is it? Right here. Okay, and then we have another clap bomb. So I'm going to move that guy over here. Maybe a little bit more back over here. Cool. And then we've got these guys here. The kick and bass are going to be high passed. So I'm going to do a pluck low and then I'll do a pluck high. And that's going to be this guy right here. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Okay, you can hear this kind of interesting riser. So riser tonal maybe? Sounds like a car like revving. So we'll go like that. So now this melody right here, the pluck low, is staying flat, because when you're building tension, a good thing to do is just start keeping the melodies flat, meaning they're not changing around in pitch a lot. So this guy's just hovering on the A sharp. You can also hear that this is, let's just say, verbing out / endless smile. Okay, vocal is verbing me out. Okay, now we're really kicking up the building tension compared to before, because now we got the snare roll in here. When you are building tension, just think rep, roll, rise, grow. Rep, roll, rise, grow. Just like the movie Dodgeball. Dodge, duck, dip, dive. When you're thinking of building tension, you want to think of rep, roll, rise, grow. And rep is hook repetition. Roll is snare roll, kick roll, or crash roll, usually a snare roll. Rise is anything that rises, right? So like tonal riser, white noise riser. If you have a synth that's opening up on a cutoff, that's a riser. It's giving an up feeling. It's giving a rising feeling. A snare roll. If a snare roll is gaining up, or if it is low passing up, that's rise, right? Even though you have that kind of 16th note roll, you know, one sound can play more than one part. And so you have rep, roll, rise, and finally grow. These are like the main components of building tension. And grow is just where you just push things out into a bigger sense of space. And what that does is it pushes things back from the front of the mix, so that way when you land in a more dry drop, it feels much more impactful. In a way, it's kind of like what he's doing here. Like when you're bringing the volume down, that makes this volume jump feel more impactful, right? So this is just kind of a level contrast, right? Low volume to high volume. Whoa, that's crazy. That sounds great. I just got smacked. And then, but with a depth dimension, so front to back of the mix, it's the same idea. You can kind of visualize it in the same way, where when you're verbing things or when you're growing the space, things are moving back, things are moving back, things are moving back and back and back and back, and then boom, they're way in your face, right? Front and center. And so rep, roll, rise, grow. So we can kind of see what he's doing here. One of the things with this kind of melody right here is now that it's not playing a melody, but it's kind of flat, that's a little bit of a rep. It just keeps going. We'll see if it's actually playing in here. I'm not sure. But that's what we're going to be looking out for, is if we want to build tension and we're looking at reference tracks, what are they doing with the rep, roll, rise, and grow? And what can we play with as a result by just getting inspiration from the reference tracks? So this sound right here, the pluck low, this thing is getting huge, creating massive atmosphere. Okay, vocal still relatively clear, but let's go from top down. So we've got the kicks. Okay, now we're also going to get a kick roll. So we have a snare roll and a kick roll. Kick roll starts right here. All right, and so it just steps down from quarter notes to eighth notes. I'm just going to put it on its own channel. So we'll just go like this, and maybe it'll drop down to 16ths. We'll see, but let's just put it on eighth notes for now. So there we go. Nope, so it does not drop down to eighth notes, but it does have one last kick right there at the end. So then we got to get rid of the beat. Let's get rid of the bass right here. You can see he's playing with the high pass filter on this thing. So he kind of like brings it up right here, and then he starts to bring it down. Oh, okay. This is almost like high pass. This is really cool. So this is HP kick, hat. I'm sorry, kick, HP kick, clap right here. So before there was no drums here. So this right here is a slight elevation over what happened before. It's just a little bit more energy, a little bit different than what happened before. So no more snare roll right here, but we definitely have this guy. This guy's going to be layered a little bit differently, just like before. I'm just going to color it yellow so that color freaking pops. And same thing back here. This is the payoff vocal. Slight different layer on there just to add some interest, kind of we looked at before with that kind of chord accent. Okay, and then what else we got? Let's see. Okay, we have these chords back here. Let's pay attention to some of these guys. Okay, so the chords go away right here. No, I don't hear a string. Okay, the pluck high continues. The crazy riser continues. Damn, that thing is explosive. Okay, cool. But that's really it. So what's going on here? Well, we got the kick and bass high pass. We're getting a kick roll at some point. We got the snare roll. So then we had the vocal just continuing to play. Almost inaudible right here, but there's so much building energy going on that the vocal just kind of takes a back seat to the building energy. And then we've got the pluck back here. Playing throughout here flat, but it's just getting huge in the atmosphere. But if I play here, just crazy amounts of reverb on that sound. We got the pluck high kid playing throughout. This is going to be a sound that gets introduced so that it plays over here. So that's a classic thing to do is in the breaks in general. So this is going to be the main break. In the breaks in general, one thing you could do is introduce sounds that are going to be played later on. And that's exactly what's happening here. Okay, so let's now check out the next drop. So definitely HG2, let's call it A. Okay, so we hear a lot of stuff going on, but definitely one thing we hear is we hear this kind of percussion lift coming in right here. We've got the drums and the bass. Let's bring these guys over. Okay, we also hear these initial stabs. Let's see, maybe a little bit different. Okay, anyone that... So kind of more like these guys down here, I would say. Let's put this over here like that. Okay, and then we have that kind of FM-y sound. So let's go to here. So we'll do like FM up 1. So we'll color that a nice green. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay, so this is, oh boy. Okay, so we got the high. So we're going to do octave up, and then this is going to be octave down. There we go. So I think he's playing something like this. Let's see. Like if I just go get a synth really quick, Serum, and then throw this guy in here. Let's see. So I think he's playing it towards the end. A little bit easier maybe to hear here. So boom, let's turn this guy on. Here and then bum, bum. And then this guy up here. So then bum bum bum, and then so if we play it. And then so then here, I believe. So then it cycles around like this. And then let's get... And then why is it... Okay, let's just map this out. Okay, so then here, like that. And let's extend this. Interesting. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna... It's not playing on an even thing, I don't think so. So I'm gonna move this. Yeah, that's good. And then that plays over here like that. Ah, what an idiot. Here we go. Cool, there we go. All right, so then we can just loop around this guy, and we can go right click, loop current region. There we go. I just didn't hear that first hit for some reason. I don't know if we just put some reverb on there. Maybe a touch of saturation. Let's see. And then maybe a little bit, just to boost the top end a little bit. Maybe a little bit down on the, over here. Something like that. And then let's go get some, where are they? Reverb. It sounds like there's a little bit of hyper dimension on there too, a little bit. So if we got hyper, where are you? Could be from the voices for sure, but let's turn off the reverb for now. And then moving that over here, let's pop it up. You can hear a little bit of like portamento on there. All right, that's enough of that. Oh my God. All right, so this is just going to be octave up again, and I'm going to color this guy a deeper purple. There we go. Now, in case you don't know, Sam Smyers remade these sounds, so definitely check that out. You just got to type in Odd Mob Remix, whatever, and you'll find it on his channel. Okay, but we got to get these little other sounds. So definitely we have the big FM sound right here. We've got the percussion, we've got the kick, the bass. Okay, I'm just going to make completely new sounds for HT2. So we'll do secondary HT1, and then I'm going to come over and we're going to do SD1 stab HT2. Yeah, there we go. Good enough. Okay, and then same here, but we've got an offbeat just beforehand, so let's put that guy down. Okay, the thing to notice is chokes, right? So here, that FM sound gets cut off by that stab. So intentional sequencing of sound. That's becoming like the key phrase. I mean, you know, I've always broken down like A section, B section, punks. I haven't broken down punks in a while because I feel like I've just done it 100 times. Yeah, one of the things here that's lately been coming up is just intentional sequencing of sound. And a lot of that is just like triggers and chokes, just creating moments, making the thread of the listener's attention jump from one sound to another sound. If you want to hear an extremely nerdy term for this that I actually think of, it's the attentional through line of the track. Is just how are you guiding the listener's attention? And when you're just kind of like cutting sounds off with other ones, it just allows the mind to just leap on to the next one. And so it just keeps things extremely exciting. This sound, as it's going up, is literally leading the listener. That's what the listener is hearing, this, and then boom, it gets cut off by this sound. Check it out, watch. Ooh, and then he's bringing back some of these secondary sounds. So you can hear that little crunchy sound back here. Where is that guy? So we've got the stab choke, this guy here, I believe. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and put it over here because you'll hear it pop up right here. You hear that? I'm curious if these high reverses are playing too. Yeah, I think that they're there. And I'm trying to hear if I'm getting my ride or not. So let's see. I'm pretty sure there's a ride in there. Well, it'll probably come up, we'll hear in a second, but let's go and get a little ride in there. AC2 without a ride, you gotta have a ride. Okay, cool, here we go. Oh, cool. So we also need the vocal. Where's the vocal at? Let's bring this guy over. Copy. There we go. Cool. Let's get rid of these guys. Does he say palm of my hands? No. Okay, so it's just on the back half right here, the next four. Really cool. It's just there's an interesting thing going on with this sound almost, where these two notes sound like they are separate from these guys. Like almost like these are a little bit more down the middle than these are. Yeah, that's I don't know if I'm hearing that, but an interesting way that you could do something like that is if, for example, I think there's too much hyperdimension on there. It sounds a little too phasey. I guess it's the dimension. What you could do is if I wanted those to be, what's it called? If I wanted those lower notes to be more down the middle, this is kind of interesting. I could take the note parameter and I can control that on the hyperdimension. So for example, if I wanted to start this lower and go higher, then the lower the note, the more mono it's going to be because there's going to be less hyper. And the higher the note, the more hyper there's going to be because the higher the note. But I could draw that exactly the way that I want that in this graph right here. So for example, if I wanted those super low notes to be down, so just like that. And if I wanted those really high notes to be up, hear that? Because what I'm doing is I'm saying all those lower notes are going to be way down here in the mix of the hyperdimension, and then all the higher notes are going to be way up at the top of the mix on the hyperdimension. So that's something you could do too. Guess I'll leave that. But okay, let's get back to it. Okay, so this is now the next 8-bar section. Yeah, one thing to point out here is I just like this. This is crazy, actually, because I just broke down I Don't Trust a Soul. And they did a cool little similar kind of structure here, which is like these little mini A section, B sections, or little A, little B, where you got this sound design thing right here, and then you've got the vocals on the back half. They had like this vocal chop, and then at the 8, they had like, I think they had the payoff line. But that's exactly what's happening here. Obviously just in its own unique execution, but I just think that's a fun idea to play with. Okay, so let's send these across right there, and I'm going to do FM up 2, so FM up 2, just like that, because this is going to be a new little FM sound coming in here. Very similar in it going up, but okay, let's see. And then we've got the little edit right here, just like that. Cool. So that's just HP for a high pass. It's not going to let me do it because it's too small. Here we go, HP. All right, so, okay, so this is going to be a reverse into that. So let's just do rev. Same thing, right? So we got the second sound. It's getting choked by this stab. And then we have that little kind of crunchy, cutting it off. We got the vocals again. Very cool. And one thing I want to point out is, like, look at the change. So this is cool. This is what I think a lot of producers think of when they think of, like, developing a track in an interesting way. This is actually an extremely rare example of developing in a significant way. A lot of times the first drop and the second drop will be relatively the same underlying hook structure, but just kind of like enhancing the production in the last drop, because the idea is give them something cool here, take it away, break it apart, and then give it back to them. But in this case, there is definitely a significantly different second drop than the first drop. But again, that's pretty rare. But this is cool. Like, and so we can ask, what are the big differences? Well, here, this crazy sound design section never comes back, really. It just plays in this first drop. That never comes back. We get that little vocal pattern that plays over here in the second half of each thing, but this is kind of a completely different sound design hook with that kind of rising FM sound. Here, these are all little spot sounds that are just kind of call responding with the vocal, right? And that's a really cool pattern, but this is completely different, categorically different, because, well, it is primarily sound design focused, but the sound design itself is very different. It's legato, it's moving up, right? As opposed to these little spot sounds that are just kind of boom, 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 bouncing off of the vocal. So significant development here. And yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. That is pretty cool. I think it's difficult to pull that off. I think that can be difficult to pull off for a couple of reasons. Because number one, you have to come up with something that is just as cool. And I think Odd Mom nailed it. Like, these two drops right here are crazy. I think this one is next level over this one. And so that does make sense as an HT2, where after you get this massive promise of huge, crazy payoff, I think you get it for sure. But that's the challenge. The challenge is having like two really cool different drop sections that are worth putting in your track. Second thing is, like, people are expecting something relatively similar over here that they got over here. This is a little bit different. And so you could be setting yourself up for a bait and switch, but I don't feel that that's the case here. I feel like the groove, like this thing is so central to the track. Like this thing. That it still pays off here. You still get that same drive, but just with the different things on top. So really interesting. Really interesting. Again, I think this is what most producers think about when they think, oh man, my second drop's just got to be so different, and that's fine. That's fine. Most of the time, no. I understand the motivation for that, to be creative and unique. But from a psychological point of view, from a listener's point of view, you hit them with something cool, hit them with the same thing that's cool again, right? Because that's what you're promising here, but just elevate it. Again, this is unique in the sense that it's a significantly different hook than what came before. Some residue from the old one, the first drop, like even these vocals, this vocal pattern, but pretty different. But I like it. I think it's cool. It's well done, So if it's well done, then you can't hate, because this thing is badass. Okay, so moving into the next drop, or the B section. Okay, so the synth percussion goes away. We've got a clap bomb. Let's get our clap bomb. Is this the clap bomb? Yeah, let's move that over here. Okay, probably another little edit right over here. So let's move that over. Okay, so you can definitely hear that this is delaying out. So really quick, one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down that idea that we were just talking about in terms of takeaways for the track. Is we had kind of the hook pattern is a big one. Intentional, I might as well move this on screen. So let's go over here. And then we have the intentional sequencing, but different HG2. That is a pretty big deal. Was there anything else? Hook pattern, intentional sequencing. That's pretty much it. Maybe just like zoom out to the high. I don't know. I'm capitalizing everything there. Zoom out to the higher level, right? Instead of zooming in. We've looked at some sound design here, but not all the crazy stuff. But it's hard not to in this track. Okay, so moving over here. All right, and then that's pretty much it. It's just the art playing. Okay, so the ride goes away. Oh shit, that's mine playing. Dang it. All right. So I don't think this hat lift is playing anymore, but the ride is definitely there. Okay, still going. Okay, so HG2B is just ARP, and that's it. So no SD, well, no. Okay, just ARP. There we are. Just pluck, high, pluck. There you go. And then here, this is just outro. So let's color that brown. So out. Okay, there we go. And that is the track. Okay, so again, the kind of the high level things here are just this section right here is just zooming out to the arrangement rather than zoom into the what's it called? Zoom into the sound design for sure. Figure that out if you want to, but if you're making your own track, sometimes it's also helpful to zoom out to the higher levels, zoom out to the arrangement, zoom out away from the sound design. And then you can see the interaction of the thing a little bit clearer, right? You're not going to be distracted by, oh man, I got to develop my technical skills and impress people with my sound design, like you certainly can, but zoom out to the arrangement because the arrangement's really how the story's being told. Definitely get cool characters, right? Because that's what the sound design allows you to do is have these kind of like mini characters for sure, but you got to tell the right story too. And you're not going to really know that unless you also zoom out to the higher level, to the sound, to the arrangement. But one thing that I did not mention earlier, and I wish that I did go a little bit deeper into it, even though we talked about this a lot, was just the simple idea of a hook pattern, right? Like when you're working on a drop, like I'll make producers just keep on going on making a hook pattern. Like when you're working on a drop, let's say you've got the drums and bass, you got to just get at least some kind of hook pattern going. This is a good example of a hook pattern. Well, every single one of these drops is a good example of a pattern. This one's very obvious. It's obvious to see what the hook pattern is. Right, just alternating between the vocals. Another thing, again, that I don't know why I didn't mention it earlier, but another key thing here above the pattern is what I call the texture of it. Again, texture, I'm using it in a very defined way here, like in my own kind of way of defining it. Of course, there's other uses for the word, but just to narrowly define it right now, when you have like hook texture, it's different sounds that it's just different sounds for the most part. So for example, like this guy, right? What is that? That's a big ass stab. The next sound design thing, right? Some kind of super high resonance, deep sound. And that resonance is just combing through that sound. This guy right here, right? That's some kind of lasery thing, right? But listen also to the stereo dimension of these. So that's a wide sound. That's a wide sound. Okay, that's a sound that's down the middle. It's also got a nice depth to it. You can hear a little bit of a reverb on it. See, but this one, okay, that's a little bit more dry. That one's also dry, but the crazy difference in the sound is this is what I mean by texture, is every single one of these sounds is different dimensionally, and also just fundamentally in the sound itself. Dimensionally would be, for example, the frequency content, the stereo imaging of it, and the depth of it, which is what we were looking at right here. But this is a really good example of hook texture, is where you have these different hooks and they sound different. And so it makes it interesting. And now some of them get repeated like here and then over here. But some of them, like, let's see, this guy right here, that laser sound doesn't come back in the next kind of run through of this pattern, which would be right here. Okay, that's a different sound. It's a wide sound. It's dry. It's super distorted. Very different than this one. All right. And so another thing is contrast, just in general. That's another way to kind of talk about like hook texture, is the contrast between these sounds. The sound contrast, like the sound design, and then also the dimensional properties. There's contrast in the dimensions of the sounds. But that is also all anchored in something that is kind of constant. And that's the vocal. The vocal is kind of providing this constancy. Is that a word? I think it might be, right? But the vocal's kind of constant, and then it allows all these to kind of offshoot, and you have this kind of cool you kind of have this cool hook texture that's almost chaotic, but is grounded in the constant presentation of this vocal. But the vocal itself has its own pattern. Call, call, call. That pays off with this response. Call, call, call. Pays off with this response. So there's a lot of cool things going on in here just from a principles point of view. And if we name them again, like hook pattern is probably the highest level. We've got call response within the vocal itself. We've got call response between the sound design and the vocal, right? And so that all adds up to the higher level pattern. You also have the hook texture between the sound design, and you've got the triggers and the chokes in the secondary sound design that we have down here. And just to point out one of my favorite examples here is like this little crunchy sound just cuts off this, and then the kind of clap texture that I wrote, or the kind of like car sound. But check this out. So this guy just cuts off this one, right? That's amazing. Same kind of move right here. And notice how this is a kind of texture as well, because these are happening in the same spot. So here's the first 2 bars. So here's 8 bars, right? So here's the first 4 bars. Here's the second 4 bars. Now, where did these little chokes happen? They happen on the second beat of this 2-bar structure. So here's 2 bars, and then we get a choke on the second beat of this 2-bar section. And then we get another choke on the 2-bar on the second beat of this 2-bar section. And so that's another good example of these 2 kind of chokes right here. They're both chokes. They're both happening exactly in the same spot within the 2-bar structure, cutting off these sounds, serving as chokes, but they're different sounds. So you're getting texture even within the secondary layer right here. Now, is Oddmob really mapping this stuff out? He's probably definitely, it's a combination, right? A lot of what he's doing is intuitive. He's just feeling it. Like when you DJ, when you produce tons of music, you kind of just start to do the second nature, right? So a lot of this is just kind of like unconscious mastery. What is it? So you have like unconscious incompetence, you have conscious incompetence, you have conscious competence, and then you have unconscious competence, which is just where things that you're a master, right? You do the second nature. And so I'm sure to a very large degree, there's a lot of conscious effort going in here, but a lot of it at the same time is just intuitive as a result of just making tons of music. So he's definitely aware of, I would say, a lot of this, because you can see how intentional this layout is. But yeah, I don't want to get too distracted on that. What I do want to just cover is how many kind of cool little techniques are here. Again, the high-level hook pattern, the call response within the vocal, the call response within the sound design and the vocal, the call response within the sound design, the hook texture within the sound design, the texture within the secondary sound design. And all that just adds up to a very exciting, unique, and cool and organized experience. Right? It's not just chaos. It's organized. It can feel chaotic because of all the different sound, of all the different hook texture, but there's an underlying structure, and you miss it. You miss it if you just stay too zoomed in. But if you zoom out up here, you can very, very clearly see it. And then moving over to HT2, similar kind of story. All right, we're getting this kind of pattern. Now we have a new pattern. It's a new hook pattern. We're not sticking with the old one. The new hook pattern is sound design in the first 4 bars, which is a categorically different sound design than what we heard before. Maybe kind of similar, like genre sound, right? Like schemas within the genre for the sound design, like with this FM, but it's legato and is going up. You also have the ARP on top. That was not, I'm calling it the ARP now, but down here it's the pluck. But you've got that. That's a new development. And then you have this vocal pattern here in the second 4 bars right here, but this is a callback to earlier. Some of the secondary sounds as well, but different things. And so zooming out too is another interesting thing, is the difference between the drops. You've got HD1 doing its own thing. HD1's also has the verse, pre-chorus, and chorus, which is mimicking the structure over here. And so you can kind of see this as well. So we've got the verse, pre-chorus, chorus that leads up to 16 bars of crazy sound design. And then we move back into that vocal structure, which is the verse, pre-chorus, chorus. We build crazy tension over here, extending the chorus to build that extra tension with the snare roll, the kick roll, getting crazy on the reverb, so rep, roll, rise, grow. But then we just move into another 16 bars of crazy sound design. So that's like super zoomed out, right? Like we got like these kind of 3 stages of the vocal, 16 bars of sound design, 3 stages of the vocal, an extra little tag here of 8 bars to build crazy tension, and then 16 bars of sound design. And then we're moving towards the outro here with just the art playing. But when you see things like from this level, you don't get too bogged down in trying to come up with this like the sound design. Like you understand the importance of the story. And now when you see it, you could just start having fun and playing with it and see and play with 2 things at the same time. So you're not just aimlessly making sound design, which can be cool. Like if you want to have a dedicated sound design sessions, go for it, you know, but in the context of making a track, like you could do 2 things at once. You could see what higher level story you want to play with. And then when you see that kind of structure, you can play within that structure. So now I know that what I want to do when I have this, and I'm going to experiment with that structure, is let's just kind of get some crazy sounds going and let's lay them out in a way that interacts with the vocal. And so if I was going to get a vocal, I'd be like, okay, well, what's the title line? And then I can maybe have it as the payoff at the 4 and the 8, right? And then I can tease on the call, and those teases can interact with different sound designs. That's a really cool thing to play with. And if you were going to do that, you would come up with a completely different sound than what Oddmob is doing here. But it will work as a story to tell. It will work as a hook pattern. And so really cool. And just to come back over here to the document, because I'm going to put this at the beginning of the video, but we've got the hook pattern, we've got the hook texture. These are huge things that I missed early on, but something that I always immediately think of when I think of this track, and my brain turned off for a second. But and then intentional sequencing is the same thing kind of as a hook pattern. So we can go like that. And then probably storytelling, probably hook pattern, hook texture, intentional sequencing, but really the call response. So we could do like sophisticated call response, hook texture, and then different HG2. Like these are kind of the biggest things that I'm taking away from this that I think are really cool. But that's it. If you got your own, you can, of course, download this if you want. Let me get rid of these guys and then also the master chain here. But yeah, if you got your own insights in this, maybe you've talked about it. Oddmob has done tutorials before, but I just don't have Instagram. I never go on it, so I have no idea. So if you have your own insights about this, drop them in the comment section below. Leave your comments, leave your questions, and I'll see you in the next breakdown. Peace.